So Sam, you were one of the team members that we were together back 20 plus years.
Yep.
And I can't remember what year it would have been, 2005 or 2006. We started to discover what it was and kind of build a theory, belief system around it. Can you kind of tell me what you remember?
Yeah, I remember we were in your office, and I had gone around to several different locations that weekend. Pastor Jerry and I, we were gone around and talked about different things. We were talking about just the way one campus felt over another, and you started asking all these questions about, okay, so why this? What about this? And what did you hear here? And all of a sudden, we began to process, like, this campus just feels electric.
Right.
Was a word. It feels alive, feels energetic. It feels like it has, I don't know. And you were like, it? And I'm like, yeah, it has it.
Right.
And then you began to work towards trying to discover what it was. And I distinctly remember a time where you went around and you talked about connected conversations. And you would visit a campus and you would come back and say, I had this conversation over here in kids, I had this conversation over here with a different couple, I had this conversation with this staff member and this one over here. Let me show you how they all connect.
Right.
And this common thread. And I remember that conversation.
Yeah, so even a little bit more context, what was interesting is that we were, I don't know how many church locations we had then, 10, 11, 12, whatever, something like that. But they were essentially in the same buildings, same design. If you were in the middle of one, you wouldn't know which one you're in. The team was hired under the same hiring process, trained in the same culture. The worship music was almost identical, and the teaching was generally identical.
Yep.
And the results were really different.
For sure.
Crazy different. In fact, there was 2 churches that were 7 miles away, same city, same almost everything. And you could walk in one and there was a hum, a buzz, a vibe, an anticipation. And the other one you walked in and you just didn't feel the same thing.
For sure.
So we started to say some have it, some don't. And then we noticed the same thing with our teams. So we've got different teams of staff, and we'd walk into one room and some would have something that you couldn't quite put your finger on, but there was a camaraderie, there was a teamwork, there was vision, there was focus.
For sure.
And there were others that you'd walk in, they were getting their job done, but they were missing that something special.
For sure.
And so let's go back and talk about once we realized there was something, and one of the things you said was with the connecting conversations, which was really interesting how incredibly obvious it was when I would walk in to a campus, or you would, or any one of our leaders would, and you'd ask some questions and you could immediately start hearing and feeling the mood, the vibe. People would say the same good things, or they would often complain about the same wrong things. Right. And you could start to see, you could smell good leadership, you could feel good leadership, you could see the visible results of something that was invisible. And we started to try to put language around it. Do you remember when we started to try to come up with what are the factors that contribute to it? Because what we know about it is that we don't create it. It's not ours.
That's right.
It's not a result of a model. It's not a result of a system. One person can't necessarily bring it, but the wrong person can kill it. We started to notice that. What do you remember about when we started to ask questions of what are the factors that contribute to it?
I remember distinctly talking about the way that leaders approached getting things done and how they approached their teams and the level of camaraderie that began to feel. And it was never a thing where it's like, oh, this is just this one event and they go and they ride go-karts together or they go do this. I mean, those things might bring benefit, but it was the bond and the battle. Those were your words that we kind of began to talk about. And I remember distinctly that many times those campuses and those teams that faced some of our greatest oppositions actually gelled so quickly together the best.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And so what you would tend to think is that what might contribute to it would be a really positive environment, but it could have been a challenging season that unified a team. It could have been what it looked like a setback that they worked through together that contributed to it. And oddly enough, as we started looking at it, we just realized there were common ingredients when we saw it. There was the presence of these ingredients and there was the absence of these ingredients. And it was really almost like a case study because we were able to look at different locations with constants and notice that even though many of the contributing normal ministry factors were there were intangible leadership issues that came up. What is one that stood out to you as an early indicator, like this is one thing that certainly contributes to it?
I think one of the things that I think people love, and they don't even always know how to describe it, but it's when you come across a group of people or a team that look like they actually like being together. And it is, they have a camaraderie, a fun, and I can remember just subtle things like when we would have a stage when our campus pastor would, they get done with worship and then your campus pastor is going to come up. Even the subtle interactions between the worship pastor and the campus pastor as they're coming across the stage together made a difference.
Right.
The fact that they laugh and give a high five, or that our stage communicator at the time may even look out and see somebody and be like, "Hey, John, great to see you today." People are like, they knew his name.
Personal.
They know something about John. They liked him and they were smiling when they did it. And we see that when we just, as people, go to a restaurant or a place of business. When you're at a place where it looks like all the wait staff like each other and they didn't just have a big fight or something, it's engaging. It's like, wow, this is an electric environment.
Yes, and to be clear, just because they got along or liked each other, had chemistry, doesn't mean that it wasn't free of conflict.
Absolutely.
In fact, perhaps there might have been, and correct me if you disagree, but there might have been more conflict at the campuses that had it or on the teams that had it than the other ones. And it wasn't a negative conflict, but it was a productive conflict.
Absolutely. There was an ability that the team felt to engage in healthy conflict, which really is just about being able to express your opinion and make your opinion known and feel like you were heard,
right,
which is a big thing. A great leader is going to let people feel like they were heard and then give them a why about why we're going to continue in this direction. Or, hey, you're right. Let's change.
Yes.
And we're not going to become dogmatic about my idea, but about the greater good of the mission, and they're going to drive toward it. But absolutely, it is definitely not free of conflict.
So in summary, in any church, any nonprofit, any business, any team, there will be those that have a little something extra, something special. We could call it a lot of different things. We chose to call it. Some have it, some don't. The good news is if you don't have it, you can get it. The bad news is if you have it, you're not guaranteed to keep it.
True.
Because we can name our own church locations that had it, lost it, those that didn't and have it. Same with other churches, same with businesses, same with sports teams. And so what we did is with some of like you and others, some of the best leaders that I have ever worked around in my entire life, we took a deep dive case study to find out what the 7 factors that contribute to it would be so that we can help bring the right elements that create the right results. A lot of people focus on results, but what we want to focus on the inputs that create the results. So
absolutely.
In the next 7 sessions, we're going to do a deep dive into the 7 factors that contribute to it.
Looking forward to it.
Let's do it.